Hey, so today I want to dive into this narrow path to happiness. I read an article in The Atlantic, and I want to share some of the findings that they discuss and what I believe and what I know they left out of this narrow path to happiness. All right, so I am Angela W. Stillwell. I am the CEO and founder of Untapped Strengths, and I work to transform individuals into the top 1% leaders and teams into powerhouses. And part of the main thing around doing that is understanding how our subconscious brain impacts everything that we do. All right, so excuse me. I want to dive into this article in The Atlantic. And now my eye is watering for some reason. It wasn't watering just a minute ago, but now it is. So, anyway, I'll pop my glasses back on in just a minute. From a conceptual standpoint, what this article was talking about, and I'll tell you the name of the article. Excuse me. It is in, like I said, in The Atlantic. And excuse me, I'm getting all choked up. Okay. Get my water. Hold on just 1 second. There we go. All right. So this article is in The Atlantic, and the name of it is "The Path to Happiness is Narrow." There's more to the title than that, but one of the things that they really touched on, I'm going to grab my glasses real quick because I want to read something to you. Staying on the narrow path demands conscious focus on your relationships, not leaving their quality and intensity to chance. It means treating them with the kind of seriousness that people usually reserve for their money or career. It also means chipping away at the aspects of life that can distract you and crowd love out. But everyone has the potential to do these things. All right, so they get into a lot of statistics about, the happy people, what do they do differently, that there's this narrow path, that when you look at happy people versus unhappy people, the happy people all have a lot more in common than do the unhappy people. The happy people do a lot more of the exact same things than do the unhappy people. The unhappy people, they say there's, millions of ways to become unhappy or to stay unhappy, and just a few to be in that happy place, right? And so I loved the article. It's a great article, and it relates to a story that I have shared before, and I'll share it again real quick from a high level standpoint. Years ago, I was leaving a very emotional event. It was a parole board hearing for the person who took my mom's life. And we had been fighting for years and years to keep this person in prison. And as I was leaving, and by the way, at the time, I was in the middle of a divorce. And so I drove across the state to go to this parole board hearing by myself. And was there. Family met me there, but it was a very emotional day because every time we had to do this parole board hearing thing, we had to relive and go through everything that had happened over and over and over again. And so for 30 years, we worked at doing this. Now, at this particular parole board hearing, obviously I was in quite a uncomfortable situation, go in the middle of a divorce, doing this parole board hearing, reliving everything. I had bawled my eyes out before sitting before the parole board, got myself collected, went to the hearing, and, spent a little bit of time with family afterwards. And then I had parked in a completely different parking lot than the rest of my family. And as I was walking to my car, I heard this voice. It was inside my head, but it could have been like all around me, but I heard it loud and clear, and it said, "Choose joy." All right. So I'm a God girl, whether you believe in God, whether you believe in whatever it is that you believe in. I got that download, choose joy. And I was like, I had this whole conversation with with God, like, really, right now? Right now, you want me to choose joy? On today of all days, today is the day that you give me that message. And the answer was a resounding yes. And as I sat in my car, I remember thinking, I thought I had always been happy. Even as a kid growing up in an incredibly dysfunctional family, I thought that I was happy. I mean, I didn't know any better. It was the life that I knew, right? And so, children have a way of normalizing things that aren't really normal. I mean, they're a lot more normal than we like to think they are, because obviously a lot of families go through divorces. There's a lot of dysfunction that happens out in the world. And despite all of that, I still excelled at school, even though I was changing schools all the time. I still had friends. I still did all of these things and was a relatively happy person, right? And this message of choose joy was specifically about choosing joy consciously. Now, I want to dive into that conscious part, because when we're children, our prefrontal cortex, which is the whole conscious thinking, decision making piece, isn't formed. It's not formed until we are in our mid 20s. Yeah, it's not formed until we're in our mid 20s. And when you look at some of the things that they're talking about, children making decisions around these days and all of that, they don't even have that prefrontal cortex yet. They don't have the ability to do that. So, what is driving you and what continues to drive you until the day you die, unless you consciously choose to do something differently, is your amygdala, your reptilian brain, your lizard brain. And it's a tiny little part of your brain that sits kind of like right in the middle at the lower part of your brain. And you've heard me say before, it drives 90+% of every decision you make, every action you take, and every result that you get. Here's the thing. The amygdala is not about happiness. The amygdala is not about thriving. The amygdala is not about success. The amygdala is only about survival. It doesn't care if you're happy. It cares that you outrun the saber-toothed tiger. It cares that you are safe. It cares that you get to your next meal. It cares that your heart continues to beat. That's the purpose of the amygdala. So that fight, flight, or freeze reaction, those are all coming from that part of the brain. And guess what? It bumps up against that prefrontal cortex all the time, because how do I get to thrive? What do I do for success? What are the things that I need to be doing to excel, to get to that top 1%, to be elite in what I do, to be the go-to person, to be the best at what I do? That is the prefrontal cortex. That's not the amygdala. And the amygdala is driving 90%. So back to this, the path to happiness is narrow. And the path to unhappiness is broad, wide, deep, and lots of different directions. So when you look at the path to happiness, what is happening? The people who are happy are choosing to be happy. If someone says, he makes me mad, he makes me unhappy, she makes me crazy, whatever that is, you're giving your power away. You have the ability to be happy regardless of what's going on around you. Nelson Mandela, he chose while he was in prison to be in a place of power. He chose to remain a sovereign individual. He chose to forgive the people who imprisoned him. He chose to stay in a place of empowerment over and over and over again. Every day, that was the choice that he made. And people who are happy, who are regularly happy, that's not to say that people who are happy don't have moments of distress or don't have moments of sadness. They do. And then they say, okay, this is life. This is where I am. And I still get to choose joy. I still get to choose happiness, right? So what's happened is the people who are along this narrow path of happiness, it's not just about the social events that they talk about in the Atlantic article. They talk about that the people who are happy go to church more often. They do things with family more often. They do social events with friends and community more often. Yes, all of those things are probably true. The study showed it. The people that they followed, that was some of the differentiators. It was something like 11 times more they did social events. They went to church like 5 times. I don't remember what the numbers are. You can find the article, or if you're interested in the article, you can comment below and I'll tag the article in the comments. But it's more than that. They left out the critical piece of how the brain is impacting and the choices that they have consciously made, sometimes subconsciously, but they have actually rewritten any neural pathways that take them just down the path of survival. They've written them in such a way that it directs them toward thriving. And they're consciously making these decisions. Okay. Just like it said that the decisions that they're making, the things that they're removing from their life, the things that they're including in their life are things that most people only think about from an income or a career standpoint. They're doing this from a happiness standpoint as well. They are consciously choosing to be happy. They're consciously choosing joy. So my challenge for you today is, where do you get to consciously choose happiness? Where do you get to consciously choose joy? I was swapping comments back and forth with someone on a post of mine, I think from last week. And they were talking about 90% of life is, or happiness. It's a quote by Charles Swindoll, and I'm going to butcher it right now. It's like 10% is based on the events, but 90% of what happens in your life is how you react, respond, right? And it's the exact same thing. What you focus on grows, is how Tony Robbins says it. That's because your brain is powerful beyond measure. It's powerful beyond measure. And once you decide to take ownership of that, then there's no more blame. There's no more guilt. There's no more shame. Okay. It's not to say that there won't be times when you feel guilty, and there won't be times when, you do have something to blame someone for. However, the result from it and how you respond to it is 100% your responsibility, my responsibility, right? So this article, it was great. They had lots of people had reposted it on LinkedIn, and I wanted to share that with you because they so often people miss this most critical part. And I don't want you to feel like you're failing when you haven't yet learned this piece, right? Oh, well, if I go to social events this many more times, I'm going to be happy. Oh, if I go to church this many more times, I'm going to be happy. If I spend time with my family this many more times, I'm going to be happy. Yeah, it may make you temporarily happier. And the critical part is the conscious choice to be happy. What are you doing to clean out the mess? What are you doing to get yourself on that narrower path to happiness, to become part of that top 1% of people who are saying, yep, you know what? It's my responsibility. 100% responsible 100% of the time. Doesn't mean that other people aren't doing things that get in the way. What it means is, even when other people do things that get in the way or events happen that slow results down, those things are still going to happen. What it means is that you choose how you respond. You take ownership of your response. You take ownership of how you are thereafter. Okay? Make sense? All right. I would love to chat with you if any of this is resonating. And so you could put a comment in, you can comment below, or you can send me a DM, whichever platform you're watching this from. I think we're on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube. So just leave a comment. Let me know if there is anything that you would love to chat about or you'd love to hear more about this. Or if you would like to schedule a call, let me know that and we will get you the link. In the meantime, know this, I am putting together a community that is going to be surrounded by people like this: the narrow happy path, the narrow success path, the narrow I get to decide, right? I get to decide the amount of success I have. I get to decide. You get to decide how happy you are. You get to decide your level of success. You get to decide. Want to be a part of a community like that? Let me know. All right. I will see you guys next Wednesday live. And in the meantime, look for my posts on the different platforms, and I will see you back here next week.